afternoon, students. So what do you guys see up here on the screen? What is this picture of?
Weed.
A weed, yeah. Do you guys know what type of weed? Do you know, what do you see about this weed?
Green.
It's green, yeah. What a good observation. What do the leaves look like? Are they thick? Are they really thin? Are they thick? Are they thin? Thin, yeah. Okay. And then, all right, with that, this is a weed, but today we are studying 4 common field crop weeds in Michigan. And by the end of this lesson, we're hoping that you're going to be able to identify the top 4 weeds and be able to list the characteristics of these weeds. So, first we have common ragweed. That was a picture that was just on the last slide, and as we said, it has very thin leaves. It has kind of like a flower on top. It's green. It's kind of a lighter green. Keep these characteristics in mind as we go through the lesson because you will be quizzed on this in a little while. Next, we have common lamb's quarters. As you can see, kind of at the top, it has kind of like a whitish film over it, and that happens on younger leaves. And it kind of is a softer leaf, and it's also lighter green. Pigweed right here is darker green, as you can see, and it can be smooth or rough texture due to hairs and what type of pigweed it is. And then it also grows flowers at the top. And then next, we have velvet leaf. As you can see, these leaves are kind of heart-shaped. It's a lighter green color, and just like velvet, that's kind of how the leaves feel. So next, I have a sheet with all of these characteristics listed on it that I'm going to hand out to you. And I'm going to give you guys about a minute and a half to look through this and kind of go through your head what type of characteristics do each of these leaves and weeds have. About 20 more seconds to read your sheets and study that a little bit. Alright, so next I will be handing you a chart, kind of like the one up here. And I'm going to have you guys fill this out as we go along. You could refer to your sheet that you were just reading off of if you would like to, but please kind of try to recall from your memory what you had just read. So we have the weed species over here, and that would be ragweed, lamb's quarters, pigweed, and velvet leaf, just as you just looked at. And what are some characteristics that we can use to identify these weeds?
Color.
Color, yes. And what type of colors do these weeds have? Give me one for each of these.
Ragweed is light green.
Ragweed is light green. All right. Anything else?
Lamb's quarters is green.
Lamb's quarters is green. It's kind of like a neutral green color, I would say.
Pigweed is dark green.
Pigweed is dark green. And then last but not least, velvet leaf.
Lighter green.
Light green. All right. What's another characteristic that you guys might use to identify these weeds?
Leaf shape.
Leaf shape. All right. And I know I mentioned a few of them in the presentation earlier, but what did you guys read in your reading that might help you identify these as far as leaf shape goes?
The ragweed is deeply lobed.
Ragweed is deeply lobed. All right. How many lobes does it say that the ragweed would have?
3 to 5.
3 to 5 per leaf. All right, and then what about the rest three, the other three?
The lamb's quarters is ovate. So is the pigweed.
Pigweed and lamb's quarters are ovate. All right. Ovate kind of means oval, so keep that in mind. Pigweed, lamb's quarters, oval type leaves. All right, velvet leaf. This one's super easy to remember when it comes to leaf shape.
They are heart-shaped.
Heart-shaped, yes. All right, and then what's another characteristics that we might use in identifying a weed?
Texture.
Texture, yeah. And I know I for sure mentioned this in the presentation earlier. If you were listening, it's also in your reading, so give me some textures.
The ragweed is hairy.
Ragweed is hairy. All right, and I would say small, fine hairs on the ragweed. Kind of gives it a softer texture. What about the other three?
Lamb's quarters is soft because of the coating.
Yeah, lamb's quarters is soft, kind of because of that white coating I mentioned earlier that appears in the younger leaves. And the other two?
Pigweeds can be smooth or hairy.
Pigweed, yeah. As I mentioned earlier, pigweed can be smooth or hairy, and this is due to because there are many different varieties of pigweed. So based on the species of pigweed that you have, it can be smooth or hairy. Hairy or soft, I wouldn't necessarily think hairy because it's kind of smaller hairs. What about velvet leaf?
Coarse.
Coarse, yeah, kind of like velvet, and coarse and soft, depending on which way you kind of feel it. And then give me one or two more characteristics. What's another thing that we can use to identify these weeds?
Margin type.
Yeah, leaf margin type. And for those of you that don't know, leaf margin is kind of the edge of the leaf, what the leaf looks like. So earlier we said that ragweed has kind of serrated leaves, and that's an example of leaf margin. So for those of you that don't know that, there's kind of what that is. So what do you guys have for leaf margin?
The ragweed has shallowly serrated edges.
Ragweed has shallowly serrated edges.
Lamb's quarters is roughly serrated.
Roughly serrated edges, yes. What about the other two? Anything for those?
The pigweed is a smooth margin.
Smooth margin.
So is the velvet leaf.
So is the velvet leaf. Alright, so with this new chart that you guys have, take a look at it, study a little bit, and right now we are about to go into a quiz, and I'm going to take back your information sheets that we just gave you, and I'm also going to take back your charts so that you guys will be able to kind of base these things off of your new knowledge. And so I will be projecting these on the screen, one of each of these, and please tell me, number your pages 1 through 4. Time to quiz your new knowledge. So So this is weed number 1. Keep in mind the characteristics that we mentioned earlier, what type of leaf margin it has, kind of the color of it. You might have saw in your reading about flowers, maybe keep that in mind. Alright, this is weed 2. Weed 2. Please be sure that you are numbering your pages. Alright. And then this is weed 3. What's that in weed 3? Weed 4. I'm going to run through them one more time to be sure that you guys have it all. Just to double check in case you're confused on anything. So this is weed 1. Probably last time you'll be able to glance at it. So weed 1. Weed number 2. Weed number 3. And weed number 4. Alright, I'm going to be collecting those, and that's your exit ticket for today. Thank you guys for listening, and you will be graded on these, and they will go in the grade book for today's lesson. Thank you. Thank you very much.